right. Well, we're here with John Slusser with Ridgewood Football, getting ready for the 2024 season. And thanks, Coach, for joining us on a podcast today. I really appreciate your time and just to hype up your kids this season and get ready for the start of the school year coming up. But first, how's your summer and your off season been with you, your guys, the team, your family, vacation stuff? Like, how's the summer been for you?
Yeah, personally, my summer's been fine. It always goes too fast, right? When you teach and coach football, uh, summertimes are a big deal and valuable, and they go too fast to
Yeah.
get back to work too fast. Um, it's it's been enjoyable though. Our kids have been really good. We've had really good turnout. Most of the kids have been where they're supposed to be a lot of the times, and had great attitude. It's been I would say a productive off season.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, they say that for head football coaches, you don't really get much of a summer. Usually,
Right.
it's usually taken up with training and lifting and getting up early in the morning and two a days and whatever it is. But hopefully, you've found a little bit of enjoyment out of the summer and the free time that you have had.
We've always, since I've been the head coach, we don't do a lot in June.
That's
We
fair.
open up the weight room and people can come and lift, and we usually get a pretty good turnout. But we usually don't start any football stuff like wanting people to be around and being involved till July. That's just the way we've always done it. We give the kids the month of June to go be kids. A lot of our kids, because of the size school we have, are three-sport athletes. We just don't get many one-sport guys. If we do, we're not very good. And usually, honestly, those kids aren't usually very good either. But we get our kids to play everything here. At a small school, we need that. So, June's a good time to go play baseball. We run into some basketball stuff with shootouts and camp, but we try to share our athletes pretty good. And so June we give them, July we still give them. We have some kids miss for baseball or basketball, but for the most part, we don't do anything in June, a little bit in July, and in August we don't share them quite as well. But
Right.
that's the way we go.
No, you mentioning kind of sharing your kids with different programs and kind of, kids being multi-sport athletes. You're unique in the sense that you're a multi-sport coach too. I mean, you've been a great football coach for a number of years, but you dip your toes in other sports. You've been with baseball and track. You took over the girls basketball program last year, and they had one of their more successful seasons that they've had in a number of years. I mean, it's it's hard for a coach, I think, to just be a great coach at one sport, or for someone to be great at one thing, but for you to be able to dip your toes in a bunch of different areas. I mean, how do you do it and do it well?
Well, uh, although I love your approach, I think great might be a little bit of a over analogy or an overstatement of the word. Um, I used to do basketball. I did boys basketball when I first started. I was a JV coach for 5 or 6 years. Then I became the head baseball coach at a pretty young age. I think I was 25 or 26 when I took over that. And I did that for 16 or 17 years and then switched to track. The one thing I've stayed with through it all has been football. This will be my 32nd year, I believe, as a coach here at Ridgewood, 20th as the head coach. So here's the truth. I've never thought that coaching was about being smarter than somebody else or anything like that. I've always thought coaching was about getting your kids to believe in one common goal and play hard together and be great people. And you can do that in any sport. Now, you get some guys that truly, and listen, I think this is true of some people who are really smart at it. Um, but some people think they out scheme other coaches or out X and O them or whatever. And I don't think that happens as much as people think it does. I think most of the time it's developing a culture, having expectations for the kids, having rules for the kids. I mean, I see many programs like ours where they don't win as many and they probably have as good or better athletes, but the culture is not as good. I also see programs which are the same or less than us, and they win at a higher rate than us because the culture is so good and the kids believe in such a common ground. So one of my really good friends has won the state championship. It seems like 30 times, but his kids are no different than mine and no better. And he doesn't do anything different. He just has a great culture set up where his kids believe and he believes. Um, And I think there's something for that. Now, he also coaches JV basketball and junior high track and girls football and lacrosse. So I kind of took that. Yeah, I've always done that same approach. I want to be involved with kids, and I want to I want our school to have a good culture. That's what I want. Our school to have a
Yeah.
good culture.
Uh, Going into last season with your football team, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be like one of those rebuild years, but you only had six seniors and you were pretty young across the board, but you went 8-4, you won a playoff game, and you probably exceeded a lot of people's expectations. Maybe not your own, you probably expected to do that, but other
I did
people's.
not. I did not.
That's fair.
Did not.
Um, but it's kind of what you do though is like you said, you've been head coach for 20 years and one of the best in the area. I mean, how do you make what most people would consider a rebuild with a really young team? How do you turn that into what was a pretty good season, 8-4? Maybe you didn't go as far as you wanted to, when it came to the playoffs and whatnot, but you had a great season, considering how young you guys were.
Um, I, I'll be honest with you. I thought last year would probably be one of the worst seasons we've had here coming into it. I just saw no way around it. Like you said, we had six seniors. Um, all six of them did not start and play, and only two of them, no, three of them played both sides of the ball. So, I mean, it wasn't like all six were our best guys or anything. They just became a group that stuck together and did a really good job. We got great leadership out of the ones we had. Uh, but we had so many young kids. I did not see it happening, especially with our schedule. Um, it was probably one of our best years as a coaching staff of exceeding our expectations. Because no, I'm like everybody else. I did not see it happen. I honestly thought it would be the worst season that we've had here in my 20 years. So I was extremely proud of what we did and extremely proud of our kids. Our four losses were to a West Branch team who I believe was 10-0 or 9-1 in Division Four. Garraway, who was 10-0, went to the state semifinals in Division
Hmm.
Five. Indian Valley was 8-2, lost to Garraway and Dover, and ended up in the regional finals. And we lost to the defending state champs in the playoffs. So, and by the way, most of those games were competitive games. West Branch, we lost on the last drive of the game. Garraway and Indian Valley both beat us, but it wasn't running clock. And in both games at halftime, we still had a fighter's chance. So I just can't say enough about that group of kids and my coaches and the job they did last year. Because people don't get that sometimes. We have a lot of people in West Lafayette that have been saying this to me. Hey, Coach, when are we going to be good again? Coach, when are we going to be good again? I'm like, well, I mean, we've been 8-4 the last 2 years and won a playoff game. I know it's not great, but a lot of people would take that, right? Um,
Sure. Yeah.
um, but it's just like any place, expectations become what they are, and you build them and you try to exceed them. Um, I was extremely proud of last year's group, maybe as much as I've ever been of any of the 20 years I've been here.
So your players are now another year older, another year wiser, maybe stronger, faster. So where do you think your team needs the most improvement when you look at last season and compare it to what you guys have going into this year?
Well, I mean, I think we need to improve in all aspects of it. Obviously,
Sure.
we last year we won a lot of close games. We could have easily been that 3-7 team last year. I mean, um, probably out of the chutes to Coshocton, we were lucky to get out of there with a victory. Um, week 3 with Carrollton was a real battle. Tusky Valley, Sandy Valley, when we were lucky to beat here at home. Um, we won a lot of close games, so that could turn around. That group just had that knack of won close games. But you'd like to think, I tell everybody this, how we're going to be. I just don't know how we wouldn't be better because we return almost everybody at every
Right.
spot. And if we do any kind of a job of building a program and coaching those kids, they got to be a little bit better. If they're not, that's on us. Um, our attitude's always pretty good here. I've never really had too many bad groups with that. So this team's got that, and they're growing into it. If I could have described us a year ago, the kids I have now, last year when they were sophomores, juniors, um, I was not always a fan of their work ethic and their approach to the game. If I could say one thing we've improved in the most, as those guys' general approach to the game. You can really see them grown up mentally a lot, and that's the part I'm really proud of. And some of them we thought could be pretty good, but we weren't sure about what their maturity level was. And now we see that coming in as they turn into juniors and seniors, and really proud of them about that. So I think when you watch us play this year, you're going to see uh, a better team just because of those guys returning. Um, it's just so hard for me to say what they're going to be better than the last group at, because I thought last year's group did an incredible job for what we had. Like I
Sure.
said, I was as proud of them as anybody.
Yeah, and I guess you won't really know until you step on the field week one what you have,
That's
and then it's week by week from there.
right. And I think, like I told you, I think we're going to be better just because we return everybody, right?
Sure.
But we open up with Coshocton, and I their athletes are still as good as our athletes. So, I don't see why that wouldn't be a competitive game. Carrollton game, they return everybody. We've got to go up there. I don't know why that wouldn't be like last year, competitive. Um, and I tell everybody this: when I took this job in '04 compared to Advance in 2024, we used to play two schools that were bigger than us, Coshocton and Riverview. They've always had the numbers on us. And the rest of the schools were smaller. And our big game was the Newcomerstown Trojans. Now, fast forward 20 years later, we play one school that's smaller than us, Strasburg. And Garaway is too, but it's by like 3 or 4 boys. So, I mean, we're actually just about the same size. Everybody else is bigger than us, besides the Strasburg Tigers in week 5. And we no longer even play Newcomerstown, who was our big rival at the time. That game doesn't even get played anymore.
Hmm.
So it's really changed here. Uh, Even if you go back like 8 years ago when my son played, if we played that schedule this year, I mean, I'd like to think we'd be 8-2, 9-1 for sure. Uh, if you go now, the teams are just different, and the schedule we play is different. So we have to see.
Yeah, 100%. Now, your quarterback Grant Lahmers is a senior this year. What are your expectations for him and his last dance?
Well, I think he's one of those people. When you asked me before, what we'd like to see improving, um, we'd like to see him be able to throw the football a little bit better. Um, the thing about Grant is last year we started and we platooned a lot from the beginning of the year. Um, and our assistant, our offensive coordinator, Coach Cabot, he really stuck by Grant. I was not always, I wanted to make switches and do different things. And Coach Cabot really stuck with him and kept working with him. And about week 3, I think it was the West Branch game. I could be wrong. Maybe it was week 4. Um, Boy, we went through a stretch for week 4, week 5, really till the end of the year, where you could make a case that he was our best player and one of the best players in the whole area.
Hmm.
He ran the football extremely well. He's a tough kid. He's a real nice kid. Comes from a good family, real quiet, but boy, he's a tough kid. Um, and just does a really good job. We just like to see him grow up a little bit, not in running the ball because he was great at that last year, but we've got to be able to throw the ball a little bit better because we think we've surrounded him with some pretty good skill guys. We like where all of our receivers are. We think they're all big play threats. They all run pretty well. They're on my track team, um, and they got ball skills. So we think he's got to do a better job of getting them the ball this year. And um, I believe he will. It just depends on how much better he gets, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it'll be exciting to see though, especially if you've got weapons around him that can
We do.
make plays in open field. Then, I mean, all you got to do is just get him the ball and let him go. So,
Right. We do have weapons around him. We think we're probably as skilled at the wide receiver spot, and even can throw in running backs pretty good. Now we've had some really good running backs. I don't know if we have that due to getting back there, but we have 2 or 3 that we really think are pretty good. And the receiver spots, we think we have some dudes. So, like I said, we've surrounded him with weapons. He's got to do a better job of figuring out and getting to the ball this year, and I believe he will.
there any names, whether it's in those skill position guys or it's on the defensive side of the ball, that you expect to have a big year for you guys?
We return our senior class this year. When they were younger, you wouldn't have thought they were really going to be a good one, but I always believed they could be because I thought they had some really high end guys, and this is the way I always rank a class. You can tell usually you're going to get 3, 2, 3, 4. So if you're really good, 5 out of a group. But when you get those guys that you didn't notice as 7th and 8th graders or 9th graders, like most people don't think they're any good or you don't need them, and you stay with them and you get them in the weight room, and then all of a sudden you see them as juniors and seniors, and you're like, hey, where'd Jimmy come from, or where did Mike come from? And they're pretty good now. So this group's kind of like that. I think they've turned into a group where we have 17 seniors or 16 seniors this year, and I would say that 9 or 10 of them are going to be big contributors for what we're trying to do. And that's a big deal. I really like Aiden Sparger. He's going to be a 3-year starter. He's played both sides of the ball, linebacker, running back. We believe we have one of the best linemen in the area, Logan Slusser, probably in this part. He's a big kid. He runs really well for being 260, 270 pounds. He runs really well. He had a great sophomore year last year. I don't think he came into camp maybe where he should have been. He's working really hard this year to fix that. We have Matt Humphrey, as a homeschool. I was just teasing him yesterday. He's a homeschool kid. He was an afterthought as a football guy, and he's been a 3-year starter for us. He's really quick and fast, and he's such a great kid. He's turned out to be a really good football player. That senior group just has a lot of those guys that you might have missed early on and not thought of it. And I could name them. Obviously, we already mentioned Grant. They have a Cohen Parsons in that group. I hate when I name kids because now I'll forget. You always
Right. Yeah.
you always
Like if you leave someone out.
Yeah, and I don't mean to leave anybody out. But it's been a good group. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's been a really good group for us. And I expect them. Our junior class, we is probably our most successful class coming up through. They have a lot of skill. And that group is where you'll hear a lot from those receiver types, running back types, fast guys. They've got a really nice group. Our sophomore group it's a little bit slower than some of the other ones, but I think it's going to be a pretty decent group because it's got numbers and the kids like it. They have the Tolliver boy in there. He started for us as a freshman last year at inside linebacker. He's a pretty good player. But I think they have 6, 7 other ones in that class that will eventually be big contributors to where we're going.
So we said at the top, you've been with this program, head coach anyways, for 20 years. And you mentioned that this is the last question before I let you go today, that things have changed over the last 20 years. You mentioned like schedules and whatnot. You don't play the same teams anymore and this, that, and the other. And obviously the game has changed over the last 20 years, but like
right.
What stands out to you the most? I mean, obviously like schemes change and there's different play calls and offense and defense and rules change and everything. But for you as a coach, I mean, what have you had to change about the way you do things over the last 20 years? How have you adapted as the game has changed, whether it's rules or it's just schemes and play calling and play design and just the different things that have happened over the years?
Really all of that. Listen, if you would have saw us play up till 2013 and we were in the state final 4-9, we had a 29 or 27 game win streak from 9, 10, and 11. We were all wing T. We ran everything off the jet sweep, and we were a 4-4 team. Advanced 5 years later, we went to a spread team and a 4-3 team. We were in the regional finals 3 of the last 4 years, in that 18, 19, 20, 21 range, 22, I don't one of them. Now we're switching to more of a 3-4. It'll still look 4-3-ish look. And offensively, we're still a spread team, but maybe now we're a little bit more with the tight end. So that's just – it's always evolving, Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me as a coach, I say this all the time from the defensive side. When I picked up tapes, because I've always been the defensive coordinator here, when I picked up tapes and saw teams back in the early 2000s, the late 90s, even when I started out in 5, 6, 7, if you turned on the tape, and we used actual videotapes then and the VCR and stuff, but if you turned it on and they were a shotgun spread team, you knew they weren't any good and it was going to be ugly. Now, when you advance 20 years to 24, every team does it. And even teams that aren't very good can throw and catch the football now.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, you can play someone who you don't think is very good, and they still score 14, 20 points off you because they can throw and catch the football. The times have changed with that. I will say this, for the most part, the teams that still win at a high level are the ones with the culture. They have really good kids, um, and they run the football.
Yeah.
That's if you look at the state. I know there's exceptions, but usually that's it. Your Kirtlands, your Marion Locals, your
Right.
Ironton, your Wheelersburgs, um, your Chardons, your just go down the list. They still play football, old school. They run it. They're physical, and they have great cultures. They have a guy that's in charge. They don't have those kids. They don't have those kids that are off balance. They don't have them that are off center, breaking rules or do whatever. They'll have really good programs. You see a lot of programs around here where you've got talent, you do things, but you don't have all the kids committed or in the same plan, and it ended up hurting them. If I could say one last thing, it would be also like for me personally, I tell everybody this all the time, and my kids will probably tell you it's not true, especially if you ask them today. But I think when I started this job, I was more of a Bobby Knight type of coach. Um, was a more in your face, loud type of guy, and I can still do that. They'll
Sure.
tell you they'll tell you that. But I almost think I've switched to a Ted Lasso type coach. If you've ever watched that show,
Yeah.
um, I think that helped having my own kids be around and being more tolerable of the way people feel, and trying to to be more understanding of where everybody comes from and everybody's different thing. Um, Now, my kids, if I go out and get some of the kids to come in here and get on this, they'll still tell you, no, I'm terrible and I'm a mean guy and they're scared to death of me. But um, I, I've really changed. All my old players will come in and tell you, I'm, I'm so soft today. I'm so soft with it compared to how I was. But you know how that goes in the old days versus
Sure.
new. Like, walk to school in the snow and all that. But there's been a lot change in the game from 2004 to 2024. And it's almost unbelievable when you go back and look at it, from the coaching styles, what's successful now to what was successful then, the playing styles, the what was doing then. Although that's probably the one that's the most about formations and the different things that people do now. You know,
Yeah.
different things
With
they do now. It's
the
just a
two
totally
things
different game.
yeah, but the two things you said though, it's always going to reign true. I think it's culture and it's running the football. I mean, it's always like and it's at every level too. It's high school, it's college, and it's in the NFL. The teams that have the best cultures and have good offensive and defensive line play and can run the football, they win.
Yeah,
You know.
I still one in the trenches. I do believe that. Um, People always say this to me, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm unappreciative of it, but I think this is bottom line with high school sports and probably college sports to some extent. Now, you can buy your way there a little bit easier and stuff like that. Um, I never wanted to be that coach, but no matter what sport it was. And I did baseball those years. I think most coaches that do it can win when they have the best players.
Hmm.
Most people can do that. You hear coaches say, well, we're on a 3-year plan, we're on a 5-year plan. That's kind of bad for the kids that you have right now. I think you're setting that up for failure. I wanted to be that guy that no matter what kind of players we have, when you come play Ridgewood, you know this. We're going to act right. We're going to play extremely hard, and we're going to take pride in each other. I don't want to have a year where we're 2-8 and then a year where we're 12-2. I didn't want to be, well, you'll be good when this eighth grade group gets up here. So don't worry about the 9, 10, 11, and 12 right now. We'll
Right.
lose with them. It is what it is. We got how many players? I wanted to be competitive every year. And so we had
Always.
great respect for the program. And every kid that comes in here, they believe that we're going to be competitive and win games. And I
Hmm.
think that's the culture we've set. I've been lucky to have great assistant coaches that do that for me. And our community's been unbelievable in supporting me. Um, the Ridgewood people, they just don't ever question. They just trust us that we're going to be good to their kids. Now we get open enrollment people and stuff. They're the ones that sometimes they don't get the culture here. But our kids get it and our parents get it. And it's a great place.
Well, we're really excited for this season, Coach. I really appreciate you taking time to talk for, 20, 25 minutes about your program and about, I guess, your coaching journey as well as just what you've witnessed over the last 20 years. But thanks a lot for coming on, man. Best of luck this year and get back to the playoffs, but make it a little further this year. So.
Right. Hey, thank you very much.